in that song that I just sang that says, "Who will answer the cry for warriors? Who will be there at the battle lines?" And I am so grateful to know that somebody like Jack McLamb has answered the call and is at the battle line. Please welcome him.
Sunday morning. Why aren't you folks in church? That's what I want to know. You've been to church. Wonderful. Great. Good. Well, we're going to do some preaching here today. We're going to talk about the greatness of God's nation, America, and how to bring it back to the greatness that we remember and read about in our history books some years back. Let's start off today. We're going to be talking about preparation for martial law in this country, what our government's doing to prepare for martial law in this country. So it's some pretty heavy subjects, and I think it's well that we start off with something from those that have been in league with the setting up of the world government for many, many years. You know, in 1917, a group of internationalists from Europe and America trained several hundred street thugs from New York City, put them on a boat to Russia. They went over and killed the Christian Tsar and his family and started the Bolshevik Revolution. The communist movement came out of that, and it was set up and started by the internationalists because America did not have a threat. We were growing so fast, and Russia, under the Christian Tsar, was growing so fast. The globalists at that time knew that they could not allow these nations to grow any larger, or they would not be able to merge the world together in a one-world government. And so they set out to create America an enemy, and they did very well. They did that very well. Dmitry Manuelewski, who was a Soviet diplomat in 1947, revealed the communist intention to brainwash the American public by saying this in 1947. He said, "We will offer the Christian world unheard of peace overtures, and these nations, stupid and decadent, will leap at the chance to be our friends. They will willingly cooperate with their own destruction. Then, when their guard is down and they have gone to sleep, we will smash them with our clenched fists." A man that is praised today as one of the greatest world leaders of all time by our government and by the media, Mikhail Gorbachev, said this just a couple years ago. 1987, he said this in a secret meeting of the Politburo in communist Russia. He said, "Gentlemen, comrades, do not be concerned about all you have heard about glasnost and perestroika and democracy in the coming years. These are primarily for outward consumption only. There will be no significant internal changes in the Soviet Union, and these will only be for cosmetic purposes. Our purpose is to disarm the Americans and let them fall asleep." Pretty much what Dmitry said in 1947. Have they been successful? To a certain extent, they certainly have. There is an awakening across the land, though, and we're so happy to be a small part of that, and you are too, a very important part of that. To talk about how they have managed in America today to bring us to a time that we may see martial law in America before our lives are up, certainly. If we're unsuccessful at stopping this program to subjugate us under a world system in the next couple years, we need to talk about the ways they have done this and are doing it presently. We will talk about just a few minutes about one of their Achilles heels, one of their most important Achilles heels in this nation that they need to have, and without this particular program and group of people, they can't accomplish what they want to do. And that, of course, is those of us in uniform. the force, the power that will force this peace, as the communists said, that the word peace to the communists is the absence to communism and socialism. That's what peace means to them. And they can't enforce the peace like's being done right now under the UN on nations unless they do it with people in uniform. So it's very important to this socialization of America and the program to put us under martial law, which we see now in a program called regionalism, as they're regionalizing all the parts of the United States. A part of that program you'll recognize is charter government. Charter government is taking your right to vote for your elected officials away from you, and people more intelligent than you, they say, are going to appoint these people. That's part of the regional plan. It's part of the martial law program for America. And so we'll talk a few minutes first about the academy training of our police officers and soldiers today. But the best way to start that training is to take you back, like we did a couple days ago, the first night I spoke. Some of you were there. And we talked about who these police officers and soldiers are today. Well, to start off with that conversation, you have to say that they are very patriotic people. And they are very much in love with America. They truly are. Officer Rick Dalton and I, and many of our police officers and soldiers that work with us, deal with these people all the time. And although they've gone through 12 years and sometimes 16 years of socialist training in the public school system, globalist training as world citizen training that all of our children are getting today, not being told they're American citizens anymore, these police officers, the young police officers, have gone through pretty much that same training. They have also gone through a lot of anti-God training, humanist training, atheistic training, and other New Age religion training. Anything but Christian training. They will not receive that in school at all. And I want to read to you a couple things out of our manual, Police Manual, Operation Vampire Killer 2000, Police Action Plan for Stopping World Government Rule. On page 25, you'll have a section on schools and what the children today are learning in the school systems. And we have a few quotes here that are very important so you can understand that your police officers have gone through this training. And of course, the private sector has gone through this educational training in the government school system. We'll give you a quote by Dr. Chester Pierce, Harvard University professor. Now, he is one of those professors that trains new teachers to go on, and he goes to conventions around this nation. Matter of fact, all of these people I'm going to quote from do just that. They go to teachers' conventions, they train new teachers or prospective teachers for our schools across America. And Dr. Chester Pierce says this. He said, every child in America who enters school at the age of 5 is mentally ill because he comes to school with an allegiance to our institutions, toward the preservation of this form of government that we now have. Patriotism, nationalism, and sovereignty are all that proves that these children are sick and are truly, because a truly well individual is one who has rejected all of those things and is truly an international child of the future. Now, how do you like that fellow training your prospective teachers in America today? And he's been doing it for many, many years. Dr. Paul Branwan, another leading U.S. child psychologist that trains psychologists that go in and are the psychologists in the schools of America, so your little children can get psychological information or training or counseling as they go through the government school system. He says this, every child who believes in God is mentally ill. Dr. Sidney Simon, lecturer, educator of teachers, prospective teachers across this nation, goes to a lot of conventions for teachers, says, we do not need any more preaching about right or wrong. The old thou shalt not simply are not relevant today. Values clarification is a method for teachers to change the values of children without getting caught. The last one I'll share with you here comes out of a book that they use to teach teachers, and it's called Weep for Our Children, and it's about values clarification and situation ethics. Now, why is this important with a talk about police officers and martial law in America? Well, you have to understand the training that your children, if they went through the government school system, and these young police officers have received before you can understand the force that will be sent against the American people. We must understand that, what we're dealing with. And this is, I'm going to explain this in just a minute, how it fits in with police. In the book, Weep for Our Children, a book on values, clarification, and situation ethics, it says it's okay to lie, it's okay to steal, it's okay to have premarital sex, it's okay to cheat or to kill if these things are part of your value system and you have clarified these values for yourself. The important thing is not what values you choose, but that you have chosen them yourself freely without coercion of parents, spouse, priest, friends, ministers, or social pressures of any kind. Now, I'll tell you why this is all important. Today in America, as you watch trials, as you watch investigations being brought forward to go to trial, you will find a high number of police officers at the federal, state, and local level that'll change police reports, will destroy evidence, will manufacture evidence, and will lie on the witness stand. And you say, and I know you've seen this, and you say, how can they do that? They've sworn an oath, and they should rise to a higher moral value. As every officer knows, Rick will tell you that too, that when we went through the police academy, we were told that we should hold ourselves on a level higher in morals than the other citizens. So why do we see in every major trial, and I've been through a lot of them in this country, the Waco trial, the Weaver trial, every federal agent took the witness stand after they had changed police reports, after they had destroyed evidence, after they had manufactured evidence, and they lied and lied and lied on the witness stand. Now, why do they do that? Well, here's the reason. This happens to have to do with preparation for martial law in this country. They have changed the political system in the United States without our knowledge. And here's that political system. Khrushchev, in 1952, I believe it was, or 53, stood at the UN building, or in the UN building, took his shoe off and pounded on the podium and made some very strong statements that we will bury you, America, and you will furnish the rope that we will hang you with. And of course, we've done just that. But he said something off stage that you weren't supposed to hear. He was interviewed by some of the media people there that were his colleagues, by the way, in America, socialist and Marxist media people. And they were interviewing their good friend and their buddy and their great guru from communist Russia. And they said to him, Mr. Khrushchev, explain to us what morality is to a communist. What is morality to a communist? I think a lot of them already knew the answer, but he says morality to a communist is that everything is moral. Everything is moral. And he didn't say this, but that would mean mass murders that they've committed a lot of, lying, stealing, cheating. Everything is moral. And he said, as long as it promotes the goal of world communism. Now we come back to America. The system has been changed because we now have a system called the end justifies the means political philosophy, the same as the Russians had. Everything is moral as long as it promotes the goal. And the goal is, for the police officers today, the way they're trained is, you must protect the system from the people. The system is more important than the people. And it used to be, of course, the people. When the Founding Fathers set up our country, the people were the government. And the people were most important, not the system. And so today we have the socialist communist system, the end justifies the means, that you can do anything. You can execute people, as I've done in investigations into Sheriff Gene Matthews. Rick's been with me on 5 trips to Arkansas. Gordon Call and others that have been executed by federal officers. It's been totally covered up. They've destroyed evidence. They tried to burn bodies beyond recognition so we couldn't get the evidence to prove they were executed. We've exhumed bodies. We've proved that they were executed. How can this happen in America? Well, folks, it's because the system was changed without our knowledge. We now have the system that says that the system, the government must go on. It is our God. It is our God. Seriously, the system is our God, and we should worship that God by being sure no one comes at that God and injures that God, which is the system. That's why mostly you see the federal officers taking the witness stand and doing all kinds of things to win. It was a man who was head of the Green Bay Packers years ago. What did he say? He said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Vince Lombardi. Now that was in sports, and he did very well with that philosophy. Well, that philosophy is now in government. Winning is everything. And so we find today that the preparation for martial law came out of the educational system, and it's still there today. Our children are being taught it's okay to kill, it's okay to steal, it's okay to situation ethics. You know, if you kill somebody, well, it was probably your environment. You know, it's not your fault, kid. You know, it was probably your environment. So we can't really blame you because it's situational. Maybe you had a right to kill. Maybe you had a right to rob. Maybe you really needed those tennis shoes because the kids were laughing at you at school about your old tennis shoes. Well, that's situation ethics that our kids are being taught in schools today. These kids are now police officers. These kids are now soldiers. So how easy is it to use them in this new system of government? The end justifies the means. So that's what we're dealing with today. Let me say this to you, and please take this to heart because it is the absolute truth. These brothers and sisters that have gone through this system and have been brainwashed, literally brainwashed. I went through the system. I was brainwashed. I can speak from experience. Officer Rick Dalton was the same way. Somebody had to shake us awake, and some of us had to be hit over the head with a 2x4 like the old mule to wake us up, like me, for example. But we can be salvaged. We can be brought back to God and country. We're doing it every day in America. And so be of good cheer. It's not all lost. And the reason they can be salvaged is because they took the job originally for the right reason. They took it wanting to serve the American people. They took it in wanting to lay down their life, if necessary, to save their fellow man. So these brothers and sisters that are taking the witness stand today and doing and changing police reports, and because of the new education they've received, that the system is more important than the people, are coming back to the side of God and country every day with your help. And by you using our newsletters and police publications and military publications, getting into the hands of these people, they're coming back to the side of the people, realizing that they've been lied to, that the system is not the most important thing, the people are the most important thing. So I gave you the bad news, then I gave you the good news. We're getting them back. And so when you see these brothers and sisters in uniform, thank them for their service of their country, give them a hug and tell them you love them, and then give them some literature and say, we care about you, you need to know some of these things, and give it to them and tell them you love them, because if you don't think you do, you just haven't needed a cop yet. Let me tell you, I worked in the high crime area of South Phoenix for my whole career. We're the 7th largest city in the United States. And let me tell you, the crime, you were literally a street warrior there. I lost 7 of my brothers and sisters during the years I was on the force. My best friend was shot through the heart by a robber and died. And my blood has been spilled on the streets of Phoenix a number of times. One time I could have bled to death because of an injury. And so it's not easy for these brothers and sisters. So if you just think about it, you really won't have trouble going up to them and telling them you appreciate the good things they do for this society. Because when you need a cop, a butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker won't cut it. And I mean that, and you know what I mean. When you need a cop, they're crazy people. They're crazy people. You'll never see anything like it before in your life. When the gunfire starts, when the gunfire erupts, you see all the people running from the gunfire very rapidly, and these crazy police officers running towards the gunfire. I mean, they're strange individuals. And so all I can say is don't give up on them. They're being misled, and they've been brainwashed, and they're coming back every day to the people because they're beginning to ask the question, what is wrong with America? As much as we do what we're told, as much as we care, as much as we do all these things we're asked to do, many of them we don't like to do. Many of them feel bad in our hearts. At nights we can't sleep because of some of the things we're being asked to do, but we're told we have to do it or America will collapse. But what is wrong? America is still collapsing. Even though we're doing the best we can, the soldiers and police are saying these things. And we've got the answers, don't we? We definitely have the answers for these wonderful people. So that's the way I wanted to start out tonight, introducing you to these police and soldiers. And the beauty of it is they are great Americans. They will lay down their life for you tonight, every single one of them, and they don't even know who you are. So that's pretty great. That's a pretty good person. The plans for our demise in this country, to bring us to our knees. We've talked about a little bit this weekend. There's a couple things in the works you should know about. They're going to cause an economic collapse. So you need to get around to some of these booths and talk to some of our Swiss Americas here with gold and silver, with a program to start putting a little aside every week, every month, so that you'll be ready for the economic collapse, because it's going to come. That's a part of their big plan. They're going to have a race war in America. That's planned, and it's progressing along very, very well, I must say. Our police officers in Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., communicate with us across the country and talk about the plans of the government starting various programs, and they have for years, to cause racial division in this country, racial hatred in this country. And so their plan to start a race war is progressing along very well. There's another program that you may not be aware of that is moving very rapidly in our land today, and it's called the Aztlan and the La Raza programs. And this works like this. The plan of the globalists is to divide America up and conquer it. And we've gone along with these plans, many of us, getting involved in racial hatred. That's part of the plan. Getting involved in religious hatred. That I won't work with a Mormon to save America because I'm a born-again Christian Baptist, and a Baptist won't work with, or a Catholic won't work with a Christian, and on and on and on. Racial or religious separation has worked very well in this country. And yet we forget the First Amendment was given to us by our founding fathers so that we could practice our religions in America free, regardless of what it was. And yet the government has done very well, and we played a part in that plan of saying, no, I can't work with that guy to save America because he's different than me. I can't work with this one because they're different than me. That's part of the successful plan of the government to divide us up and conquer us in this nation. Another one, as I mentioned before, of the racial division is Aztlan and La Raza. This is a program where the government works it this way. They cause the borders of America to be left open and telling you that they're trying everything to close them. That's a lie. Our Border Patrol officers that are on our mailing list have told us for years it's a lie. They stake these guys out 35 miles apart from each other, and these guys know it's a game, because there's no way on the face of the earth, if you're 35 miles apart on that desert down there and in the mountains, are you going to see anybody 35 miles away coming across the border. It's a lie, and the reason it's a lie is because the Aztlan and La Raza program is being taught in our colleges and has been for 15 years now by Hispanic Mexican professors, the Marxist ones. Not all Hispanic professors. A lot of them love America and don't like these programs. But the Marxist Hispanic professors and other Marxist professors, not Hispanic, are pushing the La Raza and Aztlan program, which is to turn all of these illegals back into the United States, 50,000 a night or more in America today, and this has been going on for 15 years at least, and have them start political active groups in America. That's why, for the first time in 40 years, a Democrat won Arizona for president, because we have such an influx of socialists from the Latin countries coming up here to join the La Raza and the Aztlan programs to take those states that were bought from Mexico back into Mexico. All the southern states along the Mexican border. That's the program, that's the plan, and it's working very, very well. The Aztlan and La Raza program, they're bringing millions and millions of illegals across the border on purpose every single year, and that's growing. It's something they don't talk about at all, even in the media. Of course, in the media they don't talk about. Anyway, that's on racial division. Let me say this. There's something we can do to stop this. There's something we can do to stop it. But you have to understand how evil that program is before we can stop it. And I will prove to you that there's a racial program to divide America up right now. We go back a long ways. The communists back in 1912 were working on a racial program for the 20th century for America. The program in 1912 was written in a book by one of the leading communists in Britain. One of the leading communists in Britain was his name was Israel Cohen, and he wrote a book called The Racial Program for the 20th Century, which was to cause free nations to collapse under racial tension. And here's what he wrote in this book. A portion of what he wrote was read into the congressional record by a very brave young lady in 1957. Now, you might want to write this down because you want to look it up. Remember, something I didn't say this time I should always say is beware of the sage on the stage. The sage on the stage could lie to you. Beware of the sage on the stage. When you listen to politicians, when you listen to preachers, when you listen to people like me, beware of the sage on the stage. We could lie, so check it out. Don't believe anything we say. Always check it out. And this is one you need to check out because it's so horrendous, it's so horrible, what I'm about to read you, that it's going to be hard for you to believe. But I have the actual congressional record right here, and I have copies, and I'm going to tell you how to find it and prove it for yourself. 1957 congressional record, and it's June 7th. June 7th in the congressional record, and it's on the page 8559. 8559 in the congressional record. Now, Mrs. Granahan took the witness, or stood up in Congress, Mrs. Granahan, and she's speaking about civil rights. Civil rights was a communist program for the United States. And there was big fights in the Congress about that, even way back in 1957, because they knew then it was a communist plan to help divide up America racially, and we didn't want that. But how can that be? Well, read that whole congressional record and you'll find out how that was a communist plan to divide up America. They told the truth back then. They won't mention this stuff today. But here's what she said, was written in the book in 1912. The leading communist in England is speaking in the book. He's written this. He says, let me read this larger type here. We must realize that our party, the Communist Party, most powerful weapon is racial tension. By propounding into the consciousness of the black races that for centuries they have been oppressed by the whites, we can mold them to the program of the Communist Party. In America, we will aim for subtle victory. While inflaming the Negro minority against the whites, we will endeavor to instill in the whites a guilt complex about their exploitation of the Negroes. And by the way, we should have a guilt complex. I grew up in Virginia, and I grew up with racist relatives, and I do understand that there were some things we did wrong in America, and most of us admit that today. But we didn't do it. That was years ago. And so we can learn from those things. But we go on now, and he says, in America we will aim for subtle victory. While inflaming the Negro minority against the whites, we will endeavor to instill in the whites a guilt complex for their exploitation of the Negroes. We will aid the Negroes to rise in prominence in every walk of life, in the professions, in the world of sports, in entertainment. With this prestige, the Negro will be able to intermarry with the whites and begin the process which will deliver America to our cause. Now, folks, this breaks my heart. This shows the total evil and total depravity of these globalists. And I'm saying globalists because we shouldn't focus on the communists. Remember, the globalists, the internationalists, created communism to be a threat to the rest of the world. So communism is a puppet, you see. The globalists that did these things and conspired to destroy a race of people in America, or hurt a race of people in America, the black people, are totally Luciferian evil. And that's why I share this with you, because you need to know the depth of the depravity and evil we're dealing with here. And before I run out of time, which is about a minute and a half, I need to share this with you to further prove my point about the Luciferian nature of these people. Our founding fathers established this nation under the laws of God. They truly did, and I'll just say real quick here for you, if you want to know, this is a page I took out of Vampire Killer, page 30. And it lists all the founding fathers talking about they established this nation as a Christian nation under God. Now, don't you people that are not Christians get mad, because I know the government and the media has been telling you that's poo-poo, it's not true. But actually it is true, and we have all the quotes of the founding fathers here to prove it. But what that means is total religious freedom in America. You've been taught that, boy, if we ever become a Christian nation, there'll be religious harassment, there'll be just destruction of your right to worship the way you want to. Baloney. The reason the First Amendment is in the Constitution is because this was established as a Christian nation, and Christians, God, always gave you the right to choose wrong, right? Okay. So you can choose to worship a big green frog in the backyard if you want to in America. And we say hallelujah. So that's America. So it was established, and one quote here is Andrew Jackson says, "The Bible is the rock on which our republic rests." Daniel Webster says, "If we abide by the principles taught in the Bible, our country will go on prospering." Well, do you wonder why our nation isn't prospering today? Because we booted God out. And who helped us boot God out? Well, this is important for you to see. And then I've got to get out of here. I'm just about out of time. We came across about 5 years ago, our association heard from some of our counterparts in France. And some of our French police officers over there mailed us this poster that was distributed in Europe and not in America. So we started distributing it here. And what it shows is the God of the globalists is Lucifer, without a doubt. They published this poster as a code to each other to show that they worship Lucifer. And so the powers that did such evil things against the blacks and the whites in America are actually very religious people. Now, they teach you and I that atheism is great. You see, because an atheist will haul rock for whoever's in charge because they think this is it. Once this is over, they go to the grave and there's no more. So they would love all of us to be atheists, because if this is, you only go around once in life and there's no better life past this one, you'll do anything to keep this life, like be a slave for anybody that wants you to. I can't hold this up very still because of my injuries. My hands shake, so I'm sorry if it wobbles around a little bit. But, yeah, can you hold that up, brother? Okay. I was disabled and injured in the line of duty, so if you see my hand shake and everything, it's part of that. But what we see here is the Tower of Babel being rebuilt. Now, of course, you know the first attempt of mankind to build a new world order without God was the Tower of Babel. And God came in and destroyed it and said, "I will set up world government one day under me, and there will be no world government except under me." So he destroyed it. Well, now you see these Luciferians, these people at the top of the global system, are saying, we're rebuilding the Tower of Babel up to our God. The inverted star is the goat of Mendez, and it is the sign of Satan. Now let me show you that sign here. This is what the goat's head looks like in that star. Here's the way you'd normally see the star. But if you can, the people up front can see this. And what you see is the goat's horns. The goat's horns are up here. The goat's ears are out this way. And the goat's nose and goatee is down this way. Can you hold that, brother? This is the sign of Lucifer. Now, the people that put this together, the Council of Europe that put that poster together, realized that we were passing it out to the churches, the home schools, to let us know that this is a spiritual war we're in. And so they stopped sending them to us. So we reproduced them here in America so we can keep showing that this is who they worship. Now, if you write to us at Aid and Abet Police Newsletter, we'll send you one of these posters and one of these pictures. You need to prove to people that this is what the Council of Europe and those at the very top of the conspiracy in the world are all about. No questions asked. They know it. You're not supposed to know it. So thank you, brother, for doing that. I've got to shut up and get Officer Dalton up here now because he's got some very important things to tell you about. Let me end just a minute here. By saying that you need to go by Militia of Montana's booth and get this little copy here. It's a very simple little copy. The Militia of Montana, I don't know what booth they're at here, but they're pretty easy to find. John Trockman's over there. He's been speaking here at the Expo. You probably know him. And it's called Executive Orders for the New World Order. On the back, you police officers here and soldiers will notice, too, that they are ready for martial law in America. Everything that you and I use every day, our food, our gasoline, everything comes under control of the globalists. Once we go under martial law, everything, the place you work will be assigned to you. What your children do will be assigned to them, everything. The gasoline will be controlled. The food will be controlled. It's all under the executive orders passed by our last 10 presidents in the United States, and it's all ready to go. Very important document. Get a copy of this from John Trockman over there at Militia, Montana. I will end with this, folks. There was a communist in our nation that did very well to organize the communist movement and the socialist movement in America. Her name was Margaret Mead. And she told them this, and she was absolutely right on, and we should remember that too. She said, never underestimate the power of a small group of committed citizens. She says that these people can change the world. She says, and by the way, it has always been that way. A small group of committed citizens have changed the world. A small group of committed citizens changed the world right here in America years ago. Only 5% of the people in America joined the Revolutionary War to change the world forever. Folks, we've got over 5% of the American people right now, over that amount, working with us. We need to have many more. We pray to God every day that we will have more time. But I ask you now to remember our slogan, work, work, work now like we're going to win. But at the same time, please prepare as if we're going to lose. God is in control. We win in the end. We may lose this battle at this juncture. We may have some horrendous times in America, possibly and probably that's so. So please, as you work with us daily to recover the hearts and minds of all the wonderful Americans out there back to God and country, don't forget to prepare at the same time as if we're going to win, or if we're going to lose, I'm sorry. So God bless you all. God bless the Republic. And we love you, and we're proud to serve with you at this time in America's history. God bless. Let's get Officer Rick Dalton up here. Thank you, folks. God bless you all.
I think he broke it. Thank you. You don't know what an honor it is. By the way, my voice may not last very long, but it is such an honor to follow Jack McLamb. I want to just say amen and sit down. There's a man that's worked tirelessly. There's a man that I've seen collapse 3 times, totally collapse from exhaustion, and have to be taken to the hospital for the work he does with no pay. None of us receive a nickel for the work we do. Jack has done this full time for years and years and years because he loves America. And the great thing is that we all do, and we all can look forward to a great triumph in the end of the cause of justice and liberty. That's because we have a secret weapon. That secret weapon is the hand of Almighty God. And because it is Sunday today and you guys aren't in church, shame on you all. Just kidding about that. We're glad you're here. I want to begin and share with you just the words of a sermon. This sermon was given on June the 5th, 1788, just before the state of New Hampshire was to vote on ratification of the new United States Constitution. New Hampshire was the swing vote, and if the vote was in favor of the Constitution, that would be the 9th state to ratify, to put the Constitution in effect. If not, the entire experiment with the first free people in modern times would be in jeopardy. Listen to how he closed his sermon. These are some excerpts. He said, "I will now lift my voice aloud to the people. From year to year, be careful in the choice of your representatives and all the higher powers of government. Fix your eyes upon men of good understanding and known honesty, men of knowledge improved by experience, men who fear God and hate covetousness, who love truth and righteousness and sincerely wish the public welfare. When meetings are called for the choice of your rulers, do not carelessly neglect to give your vote with indifference, but act with serious deliberation and judgment. Let no men openly irreligious become your leaders. If the legislative body are corrupt, you will soon have bad men for counselors, corrupt judges, unqualified justices, and officers in every department that will dishonor their stations. Let a superior character point out the man who is to be your head. In this choice, be always on guard against parties, that's political parties, and unworthy men. Let distinguished merit always determine your vote. And I want you to listen to this. Never give countenance to turbulent men who wish to distinguish themselves and rise to power by forming combinations and exciting insurrections against government. For this can never be the right way to redress grievances. I call upon you to support schools. I call upon you to preserve the knowledge of God in the land and attend to the revelation written to us from heaven. If you neglect or renounce that religion taught and commanded in the Holy Scriptures, think no more of freedom, peace, and happiness. Avoid all the vices and corruption of the world. Judgments of heaven will pursue you. There will be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and of the unjust, and a day of solemn judgment when all mankind must give an account of their conduct in this world. Will you permit me now to pray on behalf of this people, that all the departments of government may be constantly filled with the wisest and best people? The Reverend Samuel Langdon. As we know, religion played a great role in the founding of our country. Some of our greatest patriots, men and women who loved peace and hated violence, but were willing to stand and fight, yes, and even die, for the liberty to practice their religion according to the dictates of their conscience. And that's the heritage we have in America. That is the reason when a police officer and a soldier is sworn into his office or her office, that they are asked to raise their hand and swear an oath. This oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And they do it before Almighty God. Well, there's a plan being implemented to tear us apart, as Jack said, to bring martial law. Here's how they're doing it today. It's through regimentation, control, and enslavement of the masses. That's the plan. First of all, in the military, they are now training for urban action and operations against their own countrymen. Thousands and thousands of foreign troops are here in America also training and prepared to go against the American people should our own American soldiers lose their stomach for fighting against their brothers and sisters. Police are becoming militarized on a more advanced level every day. There are joint police and military training operations going on every day in direct violation of the Constitution of the United States, the Posse Comitatus Act. The demonization of patriots and Christians and freedom-loving Americans everywhere is in full swing. They're calling these freedom-loving people, that's you and I, the enemies of America. I attended a seminar entitled Cults, Sects, that's S-E-C-T-S, and Non-Traditional Groups at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. And I realized that I was studying about myself, that I am the enemy. What have we got to do? What can we do about it? Oh, another thing they're doing, as you're aware, thousands and thousands of laws and regulations every year are being passed so that now every one of us is probably a criminal in some way. So that anyone they target can be arrested very simply because, yes, hey, you broke the law. There's a law against virtually everything. What can we do? I'm here to tell you that I want to destroy my enemies. The law enforcement officers, the police, and the military are the enforcement arm, or they're supposed to be, of the New World Order. They are supposed to be our enemies. They are taught that we are their enemies. But you know what the best way to destroy an enemy is? Make him your friend. Make him your brother. We can do that by turning the hearts and mind of these people. As Jack said, they're freedom-loving Americans. They're patriotic. We can turn their hearts and minds back to the people. We can remind them of the oath they took before God. We can remind them what it means to be a peace officer. For blessed are the peacemakers. We can remind them what it means to be a servant of the people. We can remind them that when they take the uniform and the gun off every day, what are they? They are a citizen, a child of God, who wants freedom and liberty. We can remind them that when they are protecting the rights of others, even those who have been accused of a crime, even those who have been demonized, that they are only protecting their own. So we have got to, first of all, educate ourselves in these great principles. If you have not embarked in a lifelong and intensive, comprehensive, step-by-step study of the Constitution and the principles of the Founding Fathers, you are slack in your duty. There are plenty of programs around. It's important that we be grounded, rooted and grounded in the faith. There are plenty of things to do, plenty of ways to learn. That sermon I just read from Reverend Samuel Langdon is in this great new book by Dr. Cleon Skousen, The Majesty of God's Law. This book goes through and goes through the Bible and shows that God gave us his laws, his statutes, his ordinances, and how to deal with crime, how to deal with covetousness, how to deal with sexual sin and perversion, and how to deal with governing the people according to God's law. The book's available. We have 6 of these, and that's all we have back at the booth. And the references to the book are directly from the Bible, from God's law. It talks about how the founders knew that there would have to come a great cataclysm in America before God's law could be fully implemented. And it talks about the great, after the cleansing, the great renewal. And the subtitle of the book, it's called The Majesty of God's Law. The subtitle is, It's Coming to America. And that gives me great hope. I would urge you to get a copy of the book, to read it, to share with your fellow Americans, and especially with those who you know who are in law enforcement and the military. Let them realize that the freedom to choose is the most important thing, and any law which violates freedom violates God's law, and we are going to be held accountable by God if we do not fight against those laws. If we sit back and allow them to come, we're going to be held accountable. For what we are doing is asking government in our name to take the life, liberty, and property of someone when they're not justified to do it, unless we fight against the law, unless we argue against it, unless we hold our legislators accountable, let them know our feelings. A really simple example, we have a law against, it's a non-smoking ordinance in our city of Mesa. It is probably the most strict and severe one in the United States that I'm aware of. It was just passed by the city council. The law prohibits smoking in all public places, period. Restaurants, etc., etc. Now, I'm not a smoker. Smoking makes me sick. I hate it. I don't like it. But do you know what? Who am I, in the name of government, to tell a restaurant owner that he can't allow someone to smoke in his restaurant? It's his property. I have no constitutional right to make my neighbor provide for me a smoke-free place. The market will do that. If he has enough people in his community that don't want to go in a smoke-filled place, he won't get the business. If somebody can open a restaurant and advertise smoke-free, we have to have choice. We can't force our neighbor to do what we think is right. That is not our opportunity. It is not our authority. It is not our right. Anything that I could not do to my neighbor as an individual, I cannot ask my representatives in government to do that. We've got to understand that principle and stand up for it and protect the rights of people. There's another great book also, because principles are where it's all about. If you understand the principle, the idea that the individual can ask his government to do nothing more than he would do himself, then it's easy to apply these things as laws and ordinances come down the road. There's another book. It's called The 5,000-Year Leap. This discusses 28 great principles that made us the first free people in modern times. The first 5,000 years prior to the settlement of Jamestown in 1607, there had been virtually no major advances in technology. The methods of farming and agriculture, the methods of textiles and of clothing making were the same for 5,000 years. But it wasn't until the principles of freedom and liberty, the free market economics, were unleashed in and around Jamestown, and within just a couple of hundred years, we went from the plowshare to putting a man on the moon. And that was done with these great principles. This book identifies the 28 great principles. Principle number 1 is natural law, that we're founded upon God's law. Principle number 2 is that we have to have righteous and moral leaders to make this constitutional government work. Number 3, we have to have a righteous and moral people. The founders said that this government is made for that, and it is unsuitable for the government of any other people. Then it goes down the rest of the road. The role of religion, the importance of separation of powers, the great principles that have made us the first free people in modern times. It's available at the booth. We have 6 of those is all we have. So you can do that to educate yourself. You can encourage your fellow Americans to do the same. You've got to know the things. You've got to know when you're asked. If somebody asks you about it, you've got to tell them why this law is right, this proposed legislation is right or wrong, why this candidate's issues are right or wrong. You've got to know, or you will be helping the enemy unbeknownst to yourself. Then the next thing you need to do is to help educate those people who are supposed to be the law enforcement arm, the enforcement arm of the New World Order. If tyranny comes to your door, it's going to become wearing a uniform. And we're the ones who are going to be asked to do the dirty deeds. But if we refuse to do it, it won't happen. And if you only are able to influence a few people in your own community, it will go well for you. Because the people that come to your door will know you. Hopefully you have some friends on the police department. If not, you better find some or make some. We tell our law enforcement officers the same thing. You need a lot of friends out there in the community if we ever come to violence, because there's a lot more of them than there are of us. We need each other. We've got to break down the barriers between us. We are citizens first and then the law enforcement and military. And we need each other. Please, again, don't paint all of us in government, in the military and law enforcement as brutal, because we're not. There are plenty of those, yes. But the vast majority can be reached. If we will reach their heart and mind, we can make converts of them. It works. Someone took this manual that we wrote to explain the New World Order, to explain the plan for bringing us under subjugation. And we wrote this geared towards our law enforcement and military brothers and sisters. It's easily understandable and easily readable. It's called Operation Vampire Killer 2000. We want to drive a stake through the heart of the New World Order. Those people who are trying to suck the lifeblood of America from us. And this book has done wonders. Someone put this book on the doorstep of a police officer in Las Vegas, Nevada. One of his neighbors, probably. To this day, he doesn't know who did it. He went out on his porch the next morning to get his paper, and here was the book. He stepped on it, almost slipped, and broke his neck. But you know what? He went inside and read it. He called our office in tears and said, "I thought I was alone out here. I didn't realize there were others who thought like I did. And I want to know what I can do to help you." This officer, this great officer, is Officer George Williams, the Las Vegas Metro Police Department. He spread the word amongst his fellow officers. He organized and set up a seminar, a great meeting. We had over 500 people. We met in one of the casinos in Las Vegas. He brought his fellow officers with him. We educated a whole lot of people. Brother Bo, Jack, and myself spoke. It was awesome. That's from one person, putting this on somebody's doorstep. We have these laid on windshields of police cruisers, anonymously. It's even better if you know the person. Tell the officer you know to read it. Say, "Please, you might enjoy this. It's something I think you need to know." It works. We get letters every day from people saying, Brother Rick, Brother Jack, I just got through reading Operation Vampire Killer. My neighbor gave it to me. I almost threw it in the trash, but something said at least give it a look. And I'm with you now. We want you to know we're going to be there. And if this comes down, I will never violate my oath to defend the Constitution. I will not turn my back on the people I'm sworn to preserve and protect. We have it happening every single day. In our military, we had a great soldier who's in the Special Forces right now in the military come by yesterday. He is standing up even in face of a possible court-martial because he's going to refuse to do anything that violates his oath. And so it's working. It's really working. And now what we've got to do is stand up and join the battle. If you haven't done something today, then you need to get up and do it. I mean today and every day. There are things that you can do. You may not be able to do everything, but you can do something. And please, you need to do something. You and I need to. We've got to stand up. And I want to bring Brother Steve Voss up now. Steve, if you'll come on up. I have a few words to say after his song here, but we've got a great, great song I want Steve to share with you. It tells it just like it is. This brother, by the way, makes his living by sharing his heartfelt belief in God and freedom. That's the only way he does. You can't buy his music and his tapes anywhere else in America. You can't buy them except through this method. They're not in the stores. His contract was canceled with RCA Records, not because it wasn't selling, but for the fact that it was selling. It was the fifth. His great single of his first album, We Must Take America Back, was the fifth most requested record in America. His the music video was on the hot rotation on the Nashville network. And they called him right in the middle of a concert, said, "You're through, buddy. Your stuff's too conservative. We don't want to, we're not going to play it. You're done. It's canceled." They told him he couldn't even re-record or re-release his own music. But he stood up to that, and he's going out and he's sharing his music. This is a great song that always brings me to tears. And it's called, "I'd Rather Die on My Feet Than Live on My Knees." Steve?
Our colonial fathers showed us the way. Let the battle for freedom that guides us today. The spirit lives on in true American. Who answer the call, protect and defend. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. There's no point to life without liberty. So I'll stand for what's right. As long as I breathe, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Every time I hear children say the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm reminded there's no price too high for freedom. Keep America first, last and forever. We must stand our ground, fighting together. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. There's no point to life without liberty. So I'll stand for what's right. As long as I breathe, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. I'm a patriot. Color me red, white, and blue. Fellow patriots, America's counting on you. And I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. There's no point to life without liberty. So I'll stand for what's right. As long as as I breathe, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. There's no point to life without liberty, so I'll stand for what's right. As long as I breathe, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
This music is going on. I have 3 different places to play music in my house, and Steve's tapes are on all 3 places. Whether I'm down in the office working, we're in the living room, and in my bedroom I've got a player, and I play it all the time. I play it to my kids. It gives me hope. It gives me well, you just got the feeling right now. It lifts you up, and we've got to help support Steve so that he can keep doing this music. He's got 3 wonderful albums. His booth is right outside the door here to the right, about 2 booths. And I encourage you, I bought 6 tapes yesterday for Christmas gifts. I'm giving them away for Christmas. It's wonderful. In closing, how many of you have seen the movie Braveheart? Okay. I want you to think. How many have not, really quickly? You have got to see it. I'm not going to spoil the movie for you, but those of you who have, you can picture this. The last scene of the movie. When William Wallace, who is a true story, by the way, William Wallace was a great fighter for freedom in the 1300s, for his native Scotland, so that they could live under freedom. They fought for this. They were under the thumb of the very same country, Great Britain, that our founders fought against. But think about the last scene in the movie. Here's a man, by the way, that said, "I'll live in peace if I can. I don't want to fight." He wanted to raise crops and children. But he had no choice. Now think again at the last scene of the movie. Think about what happened. Think about the very last moment when he had an opportunity to escape torture and to escape the rack and beheading and the kinds of things that happened because he refused to swear loyalty to the king. And think about the great word, the last word he uttered. Let that word distill upon your soul. Let it fill your heart and your mind. Let it lift you. Think about it. The last word uttered by William Wallace. The word uttered by our founders everywhere. Freedom. Freedom. More powerful than an invading army is an idea whose time has come. Freedom under God is that idea. We will win with God's help. Let us not be held to be slackers when it comes our time for judgment. Freedom is the idea. Freedom is our life. And we will live in freedom someday. God bless you. God bless America. Please come by the booth. Get our materials. Don't forget to get Steve's music also. And let freedom ring. Thank you.